Thank you, Joanne Wolf, for playing Healer of Our Every Ill. I am Chaplain Ann Weaver. We welcome the families and friends of George Dan Doughton, Joan Doughton, Edgar Stace, Janet Ryder, and Sandra Barber to this service of remembrance. During this time, we give thanks for the lives of these residents, and we also extend our condolences to the family and friends gathered here in High Foundation Auditorium and watching online. As we begin, I want to read a poem written by John O'Donohue, and it's called For Grief. When you lose someone you love, your life becomes strange. The ground beneath you becomes fragile. Your thoughts make your eyes unsure. And some dead echo drags your voice down, where words have no confidence. Your heart has grown heavy with loss, and though this loss has wounded others too, no one knows what has been taken from you. When the silence of absence deepens, flickers of guilt kindle regret for all that was left unsaid or undone. There are days when you wake up happy, again inside the fullness of life, until the moment breaks and you are thrown back onto the black tide of loss. Days when you have your heart back, you are able to function well, until in the middle of work or encounter, suddenly with no warning, you are ambushed by grief. It becomes hard to trust yourself. All you can depend on now is that sorrow will remain faithful to itself. More than you know, it knows its way and will find the right time to pull and pull the rope of grief until that coiled hill of tears has reduced to its last drop. Gradually, you will learn acquaintance with the invisible form of the departed. And when the work of grief is done, the wound of loss will heal. And you will have learned to wean your eyes from that gap in the air and be able to enter the hearth in your own soul, where your loved one has awaited your return all the time. I invite Richard Weaver to play In the Rifted Rock I'm Resting.
I am Chaplain Kathy Miles. Let us remember our loved ones. George Daniel Dan Doughton, 86, passed away on March 7th. Born in Alexandria, Virginia, he was the son of the late Frank Doughton Sr. and Mary Bradshaw Doughton. He was married to his beloved wife, Joan Doughton, for 63 years. Dan attended Mount Vernon High School. He enlisted in the United States Navy, and after 23 years of service, Dan was honorably discharged as Chief Warrant Officer 2. Dan received many medals in the Navy, including a voluntary appointment at the White House. After retiring from the Navy, Dan worked at Burnham Corporation for over 20 years. He was a devout Catholic, a member of the Knights of Columbus, an extraordinary minister, and a longtime member of the Sacred Heart of Jesus Catholic Church, where he was a regular volunteer, including at weekly bingo. An avid golfer, he was a club member at Four Seasons, enjoyed being outdoors fishing and hunting, played fast-pitch softball in the Navy and slow-pitch softball in a church league with his son, was a lifetime Washington football fan, and enjoyed tending to and sitting in his garden, sharing his love of model trains with family and traveling, especially taking road trips on his Harley Davidson with his soulmate, Joan, hanging on tight. Dan was an extremely devoted husband, cherished his time with family, especially his grandkids, and always put his family first. For many years, with his son Mike as sous chef, he cooked breakfast to order every Sunday for the whole family after church. Determined to live life on his own terms, despite facing challenges from Parkinson's, Dan persevered by staying active, regularly walking almost 20,000 steps a day, working out with a personal trainer and with a group of friends who also had Parkinson's, and participating in a fitness drumming group. He will be remembered as a kind, compassionate gentleman and family man, and will be sorely missed by all who knew him. Dan is survived by 4 children: Tracy and her husband, Bob Artis, Lynn and her husband, Tom Fosnot, Michael and his wife, Pam Doughton, and Colleen and her husband, Patrick Ward. 8 grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren, and 2 more on the way. He was predeceased by 2 siblings, Nancy Hillier and Frank Page Doughton, Jr., grandson Adam Bricker, and his dear wife Joan died 1 month after Dan. A mass of Christian burial was held on Friday, April 4th, at Sacred Heart of Jesus Church in Lancaster. The family received guests on April 3rd at Charles F. Snyder Funeral Home and Crematory in Lidditz. The rosary was recited at 7:30 p.m. Interment was at St. Joseph New Catholic Cemetery. We remember Dan Doughton and all who love him.
Joan Marie Doughton, 87, passed away on April 7. Born in Lancaster, she was the daughter of the late John Giggle and Helen Gray Giggle. She was married to her beloved husband, George Dan Doughton, for 63 years. Joan graduated from Lancaster Catholic High School, where she was a majorette in the Crusader Marching Band. After high school, she worked at Armstrong until she and Dan were married in 1962. For many years, Joan was a dedicated stay-at-home mother. Over the years, she also worked several office jobs as an Avon lady and at the key punch business she and Dan operated out of their garage. She was a devout Catholic and a longtime member of the Sacred Heart of Jesus Catholic Church. An avid golfer, something she clearly inherited from her father. She was a club member at Four Seasons, where she enjoyed playing with her husband, and was a member of the Four Seasons Ladies Golf Association. She made lifelong friends there and was their president in 1995. Joan volunteered with the Lancaster Project for the Needy for many years, rang the bell for Salvation Army, and wrapped Christmas presents for the United Disabilities Services at Park City Mall. Joan loved animals, especially the many dogs who were a part of her family over the years. She was an extremely devoted wife, cherished time with her family, especially her grandkids and great-grandkids, and always had a smile on her face. Her sense of humor and infectious giggle brought joy to everyone she met. Joan enjoyed traveling, especially taking trips with the family to the beach. She had a green thumb and cared for and propagated many beautiful plants, including a Christmas cactus whose cuttings are now cherished and tended to by her children and grandchildren. She will be remembered as a loyal friend, fun-loving family matriarch, whose smile and infectious laugh will truly be missed. Joan is survived by 4 children, Tracy and her husband, Bob Artis, Lynn and her husband, Tom Fosnacht, Michael and his wife, Pam Doughton, and Colleen and her husband, Patrick Ward. 8 grandchildren, 7 great-grandchildren, and 1 on the way. You can see one of these children was born in between Dan and Joan's death. She was predeceased by her husband, George Dan Doughton, and grandson, Adam Bricker. A Mass of Christian burial was held on Wednesday, April 16 at Sacred Heart of Jesus Church in Lancaster. The family received guests on April 15 at Charles F. Snyder Jr. Funeral Home and Crematory in Lidditz. The rosary was recited at 7:30 that evening, and interment was at St. Joseph New Catholic Cemetery. We remember Joan Doughton and all who love her.
Edgar Stace was called from this life on March 12th at the age of 95 with a faith confident in God's grace. Born in Mountain Lake, Minnesota, Edgar was the son of the late Dietrich and Anna Stace. Edgar and his wife Gladys were called to leave their Minnesota community in 1956 when the farm life they had planned was interrupted by the Korean War draft. Conscientious objectors to war, they chose to do 2 years of alternate service, which blossomed into a career of service as an executive in the nonprofit world. Edgar juggled multiple positions for much of his career, serving with the Mennonite Central Committee 35 years, CEO of Mennonite Indemnity 39 years, President of Goodwill Mutual Insurance 14 years, and Menno Travel 4 years. Some themes in his work included working on refugee resettlement in the Paraguayan Chaco, world hunger, the civil rights movement, and creating a mutual aid insurance plan for missionaries. Through this work, he visited over 70 countries, attended a reception in the Oval Office, and testified before 2 federal congressional committees. He considered his career a calling from God and a service to the underserved and disenfranchised. Edgar thoroughly enjoyed board work and was a chairman of the boards of Habitat for Humanity International, Heifer International, Bridge of Hope National, American Leprosy Mission, Hospital Albert Schweitzer, Haiti, Fuller Center for Housing, and served as a member of many other boards. Notable events included participating in 9 Habitat for Humanity home building projects with Jimmy Carter, meeting with Princess Diana at a Leprosy Congress reception, and serving 2 terms as moderator of the Atlantic Coast Conference of Mennonite Church, USA. In the course of his extensive travel assignments on these many volunteer boards and alongside other servant leaders, he shared generously of his time and talents, assisted good causes, and built lifelong friendships. Edgar lived atop the Akron Hill for 66 years, except for a year of graduate studies in international development at Cornell University and a 2-year assignment in Germany working with MCC and traveling into the then Soviet Union. He took pleasure in making and fixing all sorts of things, from home improvement projects, gardening, and woodworking, to improving how boards and businesses functioned. He read extensively, enjoyed writing, and authored numerous books, including Doing Good Better, enjoyed How to Be an Effective Board Member. He was a charter and active member of the Akron Mennonite Church and always endeavored to learn and grow in his faith. He cherished his wife Gladys, enjoyed the love of his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and being actively engaged in their lives. He is survived by a loving family, children Susan, Dean, Marcia, Randall, Ellen, Christine, 7 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, and sister Helen Pfeiffer. He was preceded in death by brothers Eldor, Harvey, and Dietrich Jr., and his beloved wife Gladys, with whom he shared 58 wonderful years filled with love and laughter. A visitation was held on April 5th at Akron Mennonite Church, followed by a celebration of life service. We remember Edgar Stace, his sister Helen Pfeiffer, who lives at Landis Homes, and all who love him.
Janet Elizabeth Ryder, known as Jan, lived on Wisteria Drive at Landis Homes, but spent the last few weeks of her life in the Aspen House of Personal Care. She passed away on March 23rd after almost a 2-year battle with cancer. She was 81 years old. Jan was born in Somerville, Massachusetts, lived most of her childhood in Medford, Massachusetts, and graduated from Lexington Christian High School. She was married in 1966 to Douglas Ryder. They moved to Amherst, New Hampshire shortly after marrying and spent most of their life in Amherst, where they raised their 2 daughters. Upon retirement, Doug and Jan moved to Winter Haven, Florida, where they spent almost 10 years until Doug went home to be with the Lord. Jan then moved to Landis Homes to be closer to her children and grandchildren. In her working years, Jan worked part-time as an optometric assistant. In her free time, she enjoyed baking, sewing, and quilting, and spending time with her grandchildren. She attended Merrimack Valley Baptist Church in Merrimack, New Hampshire for many years, and Faith Baptist Church in Winter Haven, Florida. Jan is survived by her 2 daughters, Sandra Booth and Bonnie Ulrich, as well as her 3 grandchildren, Kevin, Cohen, and Ellie. She was preceded in death by her brother, Glenn Sterling, and her husband, Douglas Ryder. Jan was buried in Winter Haven, Florida, next to her husband at Rolling Hills Cemetery. She was a follower of Jesus, having put her faith in him as a child. She is now with the Lord, enjoying full health, peace, and joy. We remember Janet Ryder and all who love her.
Sandra Lee Slimak Barber, 82, passed away on the evening of April 4th at Lancaster General Hospital. Sandy was born in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania on February 18, 1943. She graduated from Prairie Bible College, Alberta, Canada, where she studied Christian education and biblical studies. After graduation, she remained at Prairie as an English teacher. Following a long-distance relationship, she married her husband of 57 years, Robert Allen Barber. In 1970, Bob and Sandy joined Bible-Centered Ministries International as missionaries to Scotland. They lived and ministered in their adopted homeland of Scotland for 40 years. During her ministry in Scotland, Sandy worked with children and youth and led training to equip children's ministry volunteers in the local church. In 1980, she launched an annual women's conference that, 45 years later, continues to bring Bible teaching and Christian community to women from all over Scotland. In the midst of ministry, she was also an amazing, loving mother to Esther and Tim Barber. After the Iron Curtain fell in 1989, Bob and Sandy began regularly traveling to Eastern Europe, serving, training, and encouraging pastors and ministry leaders. Over the next 25 years, they took over 50 month-long trips spanning more than 10 countries. Their ministry continues today through thousands of local children's ministry leaders scattered across Hungary, Romania, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, Ukraine, Moldova, Bulgaria, Albania, and more. Sandra is mourned by her husband, Robert Barber, along with her children, Esther Zimmerman and her husband, David, and Timothy Barber and his wife, Sarah. She will be greatly missed by her 8 grandchildren, as well as her extended family. A celebration of life service took place at Grace Point Evangelical Free Church in Palmyra on Saturday, April 12th. We remember Sandra Barber, her husband Robert, who lives at Landis Homes, and all who love her. In closing, I will read a prayer for guidance until our journey's end. O Lord, support us all the day long of this troubled life, until the shadows lengthen and the evening comes, and the busy world is hushed, and the fever of life is over, and our work is done. Then, Lord, in thy mercy, grant us a safe lodging, a holy rest, and peace at last for George Doughton, Joan Doughton, Edgar Stace, Janet Ryder, and Sandra Barber. Amen.